when I caught my sister and my boyfriend. In her old bedroom, Mom said, don't cause drama. So I didn't. I caused a 350K business collapse instead. I'm Lauren, 32, female. And for most of my life, I was the good daughter. You know the one. The dependable one. The overachiever who never said no. Who cleaned up after everyone else's mistakes while her little sister, Chloe, 29, female, floated through life like it was one long Instagram story. My parents used to say, you and Chloe just have different strengths. Translation, I work my ass off. She smiled pretty and got rewarded for it. Dad runs a small construction business. Or, well, used to. He liked to brag that it was a family operation. But that really meant I did all the invoices, the scheduling, the supplier contracts, and the client communication, while he played boss. I'd come home from my full-time marketing job, pull up spreadsheets, and fix whatever mess he or Chloe, who helped in air quotes, had made that day. Unpaid, of course, because family doesn't charge family, right? Chloe was always helping too, which mostly meant taking selfies at job sites and posting captions like, girl boss in hard hat. My dad would beam at her like she'd just cured cancer, while I was the one actually keeping the company solvent. Mom, meanwhile, was the eternal peacemaker, smiling tight, saying things like, you know how your sister is, as if that explained everything. Then came Derek, 34, male, my boyfriend of 6 years, thoughtful, steady, a little introverted. The kind of guy you think you can build a life with. I met him at a company barbecue my dad hosted back when things were good. He was a contractor, quiet, respectful, with a dry sense of humor that made me feel seen in a family that never really did. For once, someone noticed the woman behind the spreadsheets. When I introduced him to Chloe, she lit up like it was audition day for some reality show, leaning too close, laughing too loud. I told myself I was imagining it. Sisters tease, right? But there was a flicker there. A small, sharp thing that didn't sit right in my stomach. Over time, that flicker became harder to ignore. She'd make comments. You're so lucky, Lauren. I could never date someone that serious. Or, he's hot in that quiet kind of way. Harmless on the surface, but the way she said it, like she wanted to see if I'd react. I brushed it off because that's what I'd been trained to do. Smooth things over, stay calm, keep the peace. That's what being the responsible daughter meant. You hold the family together even when it's killing you. But the cracks were already there. Mom once joked that if Chloe ever needed a kidney, I'd be first in line before she even asked. Everyone laughed. I didn't. Because deep down, I knew it was true. They'd take everything I gave, time, effort, forgiveness, and never think twice, and I'd keep giving it. Because that's who I was, until I found out who they really were. It started with something small. It always does. A late-night text that Derek brushed off too fast. A notification that flashed "see" before he tilted his phone away. The way Chloe suddenly got cagey about her weekends, saying she was helping Dad with bids, even though I was the one who actually handled all that. At first, I told myself I was paranoid. God knows my family had trained me to question my own instincts. Don't be dramatic, Lauren. You always overthink. But this time, it wasn't paranoia. It was pattern recognition. One night, Derek and I were watching a movie. Some mindless rom-com he picked to give my brain a break. He fell asleep halfway through, phone still in his hand. It lit up. A text from Chloe. Made it home, still thinking about earlier. My stomach flipped so hard it made me dizzy. I didn't move, didn't breathe. I just stared at that little winking emoji, like it was staring back. I remember whispering his name, testing if he was really asleep. He didn't stir, so I opened the thread. Hundreds of messages, 4 years worth, hidden under a fake name. Cole, worksite lead. Photos, voice notes, inside jokes, and then a message from a few days before. Wish we could just stop pretending. I hate hiding. And his reply, you know I can't. Not yet. She'd never forgive either of us. I don't remember closing the phone. I just remember sitting there, watching the movie play on mute, while something inside me cracked open. Not in that loud, cinematic way. Quieter, slower, like the sound of fabric tearing. I didn't scream, didn't throw the phone. I just sat there, feeling everything and nothing all at once. My first thought wasn't even about Derek. It was about her, my sister, the person who used to steal my clothes, crash in my bed after bad dates, cry on my shoulder when her life fell apart. 4 years. 4 years of shared holidays, family dinners, fake smiles, and all the while, she was sleeping with the man who used to hold me every night. I should have confronted them that moment, but I didn't. I couldn't. It was like my entire nervous system went into lockdown. Instead, I did what I've always done. I cleaned, I organized, I made order out of chaos. While Derek slept like nothing had happened, I forwarded the texts, screenshots, photos, everything, to a private email I'd made years ago for business contracts. I backed it all up on a hard drive, labeled it simply, truth. Then I sat there, hand shaking, staring at the word, truth. It looked too small to hold something that heavy. The next morning, I made coffee like normal. Derek kissed my cheek before work. I let him. And when Mom called later to remind me Papani about the upcoming family dinner, I said I'd be there. Of course I would. I never missed family dinners. But this one was going to be different. I didn't know exactly how yet, just that I was done being the responsible daughter who kept everyone else's secrets. For once, I was going to keep my own. And when the time came, I'd let it burn. The thing about betrayal is that it doesn't hit all at once. It seeps. Like a slow leak you can't quite locate. Until one day, the whole foundation's rotted through. For the first few days after I found the messages, I played my part perfectly, smiling. Cooking dinner, acting like everything was fine while my mind moved miles ahead. I stopped looking at Derek like he was my boyfriend and started looking at him like he was data. A problem to analyze, a variable to control. At work, I barely functioned. My marketing projects blurred together, but weirdly, I started to feel something I hadn't in years. Focus. If they were going to treat me like the responsible one, I was going to prove just how capable I could be. The first test came that Friday. I told Derek I'd be working late. A lie. And instead, I drove to my parents' house. Chloe's car was there, parked crooked like always. Inside, Mom and Dad were eating takeout while Chloe sat on the couch, phone in hand, wearing one of my hoodies. It took everything in me not to flinch. She looked up. Hey, you're early. Thought you said you were swamped. Yeah, I said evenly. Got out sooner than I thought. Her eyes darted, just for a second, that flash of panic people get when they think the lie might have cracked. I stayed for an hour, helped Mom with dishes. Let Chloe talk about some new social media campaign she was pretending to run for Dad's business. I watched her hands shake when Derek texted her, the way she turned her phone face down like she always used to mock me for doing. I left that night knowing two things for sure. She still thought she was smarter than me. I could use that. The next week, I started laying groundwork, quietly. I logged into the company's bookkeeping system, the one I'd built from scratch, and began exporting reports. Every supplier contact, every client account, every invoice that proved the business basically ran on my back. I moved the files to my private drive, then I drafted new contracts under my consulting business's name. Nothing illegal, just strategic. Derek, meanwhile, was getting nervous. He kept asking if I was okay in that way guilty people do, too gentle, too careful. I'd nod, smile, say, just tired. Sometimes I'd catch him watching me, like he couldn't tell if I knew. I wanted him to wonder. 2 nights later, I staged another test, told him Chloe had asked me to help Dad with some supplier bids and asked if he wanted to come along. His face froze. I don't think your dad needs me there. Why not? You've helped before. He fumbled for an excuse, something about a project deadline, and then said, you should go without me. I smiled. Sure, I'll tell Chloe you said hi. He didn't answer. I spent that weekend pretending to work while watching everything fall into place. They were predictable, both of them. Sneaking around like teenagers, forgetting I'd practically built the communication systems they used to coordinate their little rendezvous. By Sunday night, I knew where they met, I knew when, and I knew exactly how I was going to end this. I didn't want screaming or drama that would have made them feel important. No, I wanted stillness, I wanted control. And most of all, I wanted witnesses. So when Mom reminded me about the family dinner coming up, the one where everyone would be together, I said yes, cheerfully even. I told her I'd bring dessert. And as I hung up, I looked at the folder labeled Truth sitting on my desk. That was going to be my dessert. The night of the family dinner, I felt eerily calm. Not the take a deep breath and hope for the best kind of calm, more like the still air right before a storm when even the birds go quiet. I'd spent the whole week fine-tuning the plan. Every screenshot, every message, every photo was neatly organized on my laptop and mirrored to my phone. I'd even printed a few choice ones, not the graphic ones, but the ones that left no room for denial. The ones where Derek called Chloe our little secret. The ones where she said, can't believe she still has no idea. Mom had insisted on hosting at their house. It'll be nice to have everyone together, she said. Yeah, it was going to be unforgettable. When I pulled up, Chloe's car was already there. So was Derek's truck. I took a long breath, looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror, steady eyes, no tears, and went in. Lauren, Mom called from the kitchen, apron on, voice too bright. Derek's helping your father in the garage. Of course he is, I said, setting down the dessert box. Chloe here? She's out back on the patio, probably on her phone again. Perfect. Everyone in their usual places, predictable. Dinner started normally. Small talk, jokes, the usual performance of family. Derek sat beside me like he always did, brushing my hand when he passed the bread. I wanted to laugh at the audacity. Chloe across from us, avoiding eye contact, pretending to scroll her phone. Dad talking about some upcoming job bid, Mom humming along with every word. Halfway through the meal, Dad raised a glass. Let's toast. To family. The irony almost made me choke. I clinked glasses with everyone, then set mine down slowly. My heart was pounding, but my voice didn't shake. Actually, I said, while we're toasting to family, I have something to share. Mom looked up, confused. Oh? What's that, honey? I reached into my bag and pulled out the neatly printed papers, slid them across the table. To family, I said again, softer this time. And what that word actually means. Dad frowned, picked up the first page. A text thread. The color drained from his face as he read. Mom's fork clattered against her plate. Chloe froze. Derek turned white. What is this? Mom whispered. I leaned back. That's 4 years of text between your youngest daughter and my boyfriend. 4 years of lies. 4 years of you two sneaking around while sitting at this table pretending nothing was wrong. Derek started stammering. Lauren, please. I raised a hand. Don't. You've had plenty of time to talk. Tonight's mine. Chloe's eyes filled with tears. Not remorse, but panic. Lauren, it's not what it looks like. Oh, really? I snapped, standing. Because to me, it looks exactly like my sister sleeping with my boyfriend since 2019, while smiling in my face and calling me sis. Dad slammed his fist on the table. Is this true, Chloe? Chloe burst into tears, grabbing his arm. Dad, I didn't mean for it to happen. We didn't. Mom gasped, covering her mouth. Oh my God. Oh my God. And Derek just sat there, silent, cowardly, watching the destruction he caused like he was observing someone else's tragedy. I gathered the papers and stood. You don't have to worry about excuses. I'm not here for those. I just wanted you all to see what you've been enabling. You raised her to believe she could take whatever she wanted, and she did. Chloe tried to reach for me. Lauren, please. I stepped back. Don't touch me. Then I looked at my parents. You always told me to keep the peace, to be the bigger person. But peace only works when everyone's playing by the same rules. You can have her, and you can have him. I'm done being the glue for people who don't deserve it. The silence afterward was heavy, enough to crush air. I picked up my bag, turned toward the door, and before I left, I said quietly, Dinner was delicious, Mom. Hope the cleanup's easier without me. Then I walked out. Behind me, I heard Mom crying, Dad shouting, Chloe sobbing. But I didn't stop, didn't look back. By the time I reached my car, my hands were shaking. Not from rage this time, but release. For the first time in my life, I'd chosen myself. And it wouldn't be the last time. Update. I honestly didn't expect the reaction this story got. I posted it the night after the dinner, half numb and half angry, and woke up to thousands of comments from people telling me I wasn't crazy for finally standing up for myself. Some of y'all were hilarious. Please tell me you ate dessert first. I did, thank you. And some of you were savage. Dropkick both of them into next week. But every single message reminded me of something I'd forgotten. I'm allowed to choose peace. A lot of people asked what happened afterward. So here's the truth. That night, Mom called me 4 times before midnight. I didn't answer. The next morning, she sent a long text about not letting one mistake ruin the family. One mistake. 4 years of betrayal, and she still called it a mistake. Dad didn't text at all for 2 days. When he finally did, it was short. You humiliated your sister. You could have handled it privately. That one made me laugh out loud. Because of course, after everything, I was the problem for not protecting the family's image. Chloe tried calling too, voicemails full of sobbing, claiming Derek manipulated her, that it just happened, that she didn't want to hurt me. I deleted every one of them. And Derek? He showed up at my apartment 2 days later with flowers, eyes red like he'd been crying. Lauren, please, I messed up. I love you. We can fix this. I just stared at him. You already did fix it. For me. You showed me exactly who you are. Then I closed the door. I thought that would be the end of it. But apparently, peace doesn't come easy when you're the one who finally stops playing caretaker. Dad's construction company, our family business, started unraveling fast after I walked away. Turns out I'd been the only one keeping it from collapsing. Chloe, desperate to prove herself, stepped in to fill my role. Within a week, she'd missed 2 supplier payments and messed up a bid submission that cost them a major contract. They called me, of course. First Mom, sweet and syrupy, then Dad, angry and defensive. You know the systems better than anyone, he said. We just need you to come back and train your sister. We can pay you later. I remember sitting there, staring at my phone, thinking how poetic it all was. I didn't scream, didn't gloat, just said, I'm not your employee anymore. After that, I started pulling the strings I'd quietly set aside before the dinner. All those client lists, supplier contacts, and project templates I'd built, they weren't the company's, they were mine. I'd created them on my personal software, under my own license. Every proposal, every email went through my systems. So when I revoked access, everything froze. Dad called it a glitch. Chloe called me vindictive. I called it boundaries. Meanwhile, I registered a new consulting firm under my name. I'd been considering it for years, but never had the nerve. Now I did. Within a month, 2 of Dad's biggest clients reached out privately, asking if I'd be willing to handle their projects directly because things at the company seemed disorganized. I said yes, at full rate. The first time I signed a contract under Lauren Hayes Consulting, I felt something shift. Not revenge exactly. Something cleaner. Freedom, maybe. Chloe posted some dramatic story online about family betrayal and toxic energy, which would have been funny if it wasn't so pathetic. Mom commented hearts under it. Dad didn't say a word. And me? I spent that evening on my balcony drinking cheap wine from a mug, watching the city lights flicker. I felt quiet. Not the kind of quiet that comes from holding everything in, but the kind that means the noise is finally gone. For once, I didn't need to fix anyone. But here's the thing. When people like my father and sister lose control, they don't go down gracefully. They thrash, and I had a feeling the real chaos was only just beginning. Update. 2. Hey everyone. It's been a few months since I last posted, and a lot has happened. When I first shared this, I thought the family dinner would be the peak of the chaos. Turns out that was just the pre-show. To everyone who told me, don't underestimate how far people will go to save face, you were right. After I cut them off, Dad's business started falling apart faster than even I expected. The systems I'd built weren't just spreadsheets, they were the skeleton holding the entire thing together. Without access to my software or client contacts, every delay, every missed invoice hit them like a domino chain. At first, Dad tried to bluff through it, told clients that our IT contractor had made a mistake. Then Chloe started posting on social media about taking the company into a new era. Pictures of her at job sites she didn't understand, using industry buzzwords she clearly Googled that morning. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Reality did that for me. 2 months in, one of their biggest suppliers refused to release new materials because of unpaid balances. Balances I used to track and automatically reconcile. Without me, the system just stopped. Chloe panicked. She called me crying, claiming Dad was blaming her for everything. I'll admit it, he probably was, but I wasn't about to rescue her. Lauren, please, she said, through sobs. You know this business better than anyone. If you just come back, Dad will calm down. I remember staring out my window, watching the rain streak down the glass, and saying, You've been sleeping with my boyfriend for 4 years, Chloe. Why would I ever save you from consequences you built yourself? She didn't have an answer, just silence. Then the call dropped. A week later, Dad called. Lauren, the company's in trouble, he said, voice cracking for the first time in my life. We're months behind, clients are threatening lawsuits, and Chloe doesn't know what she's doing. I know, I said. That's what happens when you build a house on someone else's foundation. That's when he made the offer. If you come back, I'll pay you, full salary. You'll be in charge officially. That word, officially, stuck with me. After years of unpaid labor and invisible credit, now I was useful enough to deserve recognition. So I agreed, but on my terms. I came in as a consultant, not an employee, signed a temporary contract, hourly rate triple what they used to offer subcontractors, no family discounts, no favors, everything in writing. The first week, I barely said a word. I just observed. Invoices unpaid, payroll in disarray, project budgets bleeding out. Chloe had been approving random expenses, brand photo shoots, team lunches, influencer marketing. For a construction company, I had to physically stop myself from laughing. Once my contract was signed, I went to work, organized everything, audited their finances, and compiled a report so brutally honest even Dad couldn't deny what it showed. Chloe's negligence had cost the company nearly $500,000. When I presented the report, Chloe tried to spin it. You're just trying to make me look bad. I looked her dead in the eye and said, You don't need my help with that. Dad sat there in stunned silence while I laid out the solution. Sell the company before it went under completely. I'd already found a buyer through my consulting network. All he had to do was sign. The sale went through 3 weeks later. Dad lost his pride, but he kept his house. Chloe lost her position, her illusions, and most of her social media following when word got out that she'd stepped down. And me? I walked away with a consulting fee large enough to fund my own firm's expansion. That's how Hayes Strategic Consulting was born. Now, it's been a year. I live in my own apartment, quiet and sunlit, with plants that somehow thrive despite me. I wake up without dread. My clients respect me. My phone doesn't vibrate with guilt. Mom still sends the occasional text. We miss you. Maybe we could do dinner? I never respond. And Chloe? She tried reaching out last month, some apology about healing and sisterhood. I deleted it. No hate, no joy, just peace. Derek moved out of state. Last I heard, he's dating someone new. I don't wish him well, but I don't wish him harm either. He's just, irrelevant now. I think that's what real revenge feels like. Not fire, not fury, just the quiet satisfaction of no longer being reachable. The peace I used to fear has become my sanctuary. And for anyone reading this who's been the responsible one, the fixer, the quiet backbone of a family that took too much, one day, you'll stop holding everything together. And you'll realize it's not your world that collapses, it's theirs. It's strange, living a life that doesn't revolve around someone else's chaos. For so long, my days were dictated by fires I didn't start but always had to put out. Chloe's messes, Dad's disorganization, Mom's emotional gymnastics, Derek's deceit. Now, my life is quiet, peaceful, predictable in the best way. It's been a little over a year since I sold Dad's company and walked away for good. Hayes Strategic Consulting has grown faster than I ever imagined. I went from a home office and 3 clients to a full downtown workspace and a waiting list. I hired 2 assistants, both women, who used to work under men who took credit for everything they did. There's something deeply satisfying about paying them fairly, watching them blossom, in a place where their effort actually matters. And then there's Ethan. He came into my life like the opposite of Derek, steady, unflashy, real. We met through a mutual client who needed a structural audit done. He's an architect, quiet and meticulous. The kind of man who listens before he speaks. The first time he came by my office, I remember thinking he had kind eyes. That sounds small, but it's not. Kind eyes are rare. Our first few months together were cautious. I was honest about my past, told him everything, even the ugly parts. He didn't flinch, he just said, You didn't burn it down, Lauren. You just stopped holding it up. That sentence sat with me for weeks. Because that's exactly what it was. I didn't destroy my family. I simply walked away from a structure that was already collapsing under its own rod. I still get updates about them occasionally. Mom tried to start a little home decor business with Chloe after the company sale, but it fizzled out once the money ran dry. Dad's working part-time for another contractor, apparently quieter these days, maybe humbled. Chloe's latest social media bio says, healing through reinvention. I don't follow her, but sometimes people send me screenshots like it's breaking news. I just shrug. I don't hate her anymore. I don't forgive her either. She's just background noise, like a song that used to hurt, but now barely registers when it comes on the radio. Sometimes I think about that night, the family dinner, the way their faces froze when I dropped the truth, like a stone in still water. I used to replay it over and over, wondering if I'd gone too far. But now when I think of it, I feel something softer. Relief. Closure. That was the night I stopped being their daughter and started being my own person. Ethan and I moved in together 3 months ago. It's different this time, not the kind of love that demands or drains, but the kind that breathes with you. We built the apartment together, piece by piece. He built me a bookshelf for my office, simple pine, smooth edges, nothing fancy. He said, you spend your life fixing everyone else's structures. You deserve something built just for you. And every morning when sunlight hits that shelf, I'm reminded revenge was never the point, freedom was. Last month I ran into Chloe. It wasn't planned. I was at a coffee shop near the waterfront, going over blueprints Ethan had drawn up for a client. The place was calm, sunlight spilling through big windows, a soft jazz playlist humming in the background. I was actually happy, completely, genuinely happy. Then I heard her voice behind me. Lauren? For a second I froze. I hadn't heard that voice in over a year. When I turned, there she was, Chloe. Same hair color, same bright eyes, but dulled somehow. Like she'd been through a long season of pretending she was fine. She looked smaller. Not physically, just smaller. Hey, I said. My tone came out even. No anger, no warmth, just calm. She smiled weakly. I didn't think you talked to me if I ever saw you again. I didn't think I would either, I admitted. She asked if she could sit. I nodded, more out of curiosity than forgiveness. The first thing she said was, I'm sorry. Then she kept talking, words tumbling over themselves. About therapy, about guilt, about how Dad still blamed her for losing the company, how Mom had withdrawn into denial, how Derek tried to reconnect with her after I left, but she finally realized he only wanted someone to save him too. I listened quietly, didn't interrupt. It felt strange, hearing her talk like a person instead of a mirror, reflecting everything I used to clean up. Finally, she looked at me and said, You must hate me. I thought about that for a long moment. No, I said. Hate takes energy. I just don't carry you anymore. She nodded, tears in her eyes. You always were the strong one. That used to sound like a compliment. Now it felt like an admission. When she left, I didn't feel vindicated or sad, just peaceful. The kind of peace that comes when you realize the past has no hooks left in you. That night, Ethan and I sat on the balcony. The city below buzzed softly, the air thick with early summer warmth. He asked what I was thinking about, and I told him the truth. How light everything feels now. How strange it is to finally not be carrying a family on my back. He squeezed my hand. That's because you built your own. I looked around, our plants, our quiet apartment, the framed photo from our first trip to Seattle, and realized he was right. This wasn't the house I grew up in, or the company I built for someone else. This was mine. The revenge everyone talks about, the exposure, the collapse, the poetic justice. That was satisfying, sure, but the real win came later, in the silence that followed. The peace that no apology, no begging, no manipulation could touch. Sometimes I still catch myself wondering how things might have been different if Chloe hadn't betrayed me, if Derek had been honest, if my parents had seen me the way they saw her. But those thoughts fade fast, like smoke. Because the truth is, if none of it had happened, I never would have learned the power of walking away. Now, when clients call me Ms. Hayes, when I lock up my office for the night, when Ethan wraps his arms around me in the quiet and I feel completely safe, I know exactly who I am. Not the fixer, not the daughter, not the betrayed woman, just Lauren. And that's enough.